My sister stole from me again. The betrayal was reborn in the form of a bank notification. A simple text message that caused my world to crack open on the morning of my 26th birthday. Withdrawal, $650. Chase, account **** 7,823. I blinked at my phone, the bitter taste of morning coffee turning acrid on my tongue. That was the account my parents had deposited my birthday money into, our shared family account that Leah and I had since college. The one I never used except for emergencies and special occasions. The one that should have held exactly $700. The generous gift from my parents that had arrived with a card last week saying, "Treat yourself to something special, son." The bedroom was silent except for the hum of my laptop fan and the distant sound of traffic outside my window. I could feel each thread of my cotton sheets against my skin as I sat up, suddenly wide awake. My heartbeat thundered in my ears as I logged into the bank app, hoping, praying. There was some mistake. There wasn't. The transaction had a name attached, Westfield Jewelers. I knew that place. It was where Jake, Leah's boyfriend of 8 months, had been drooling over some designer watch. The same Jake who had moved into Leah's apartment 3 months into their relationship. The same Jake who somehow never had enough money for rent, but always had enough for craft beer and designer clothes. My fingers trembled as I called Leah. The phone rang 4 times before she answered with a yawn. "What's up, Ethan? It's like super early." "Did you take money from our shared account?" I asked, my voice unnaturally calm despite the rage bubbling beneath my skin. A pause. Too long. "Oh, that. I was going to tell you. It's my birthday money, Leah, from Mom and Dad." "Well, technically it's in our shared account, so—" "For my birthday!" I snapped, gripping the phone so hard my knuckles whitened. "Today. My birthday is today." Another pause. I could hear Jake mumbling something in the background. Her voice softened into that sickly sweet tone she used when trying to manipulate our parents. "Look, I needed it for something important. I'll pay you back soon." "It's just money, Ethan. Don't be so materialistic." Just money. The same excuse she'd used when she borrowed my textbook money sophomore year, and my car repair fund after college, and the security deposit for my first apartment. "What did you buy?" I demanded, already knowing the answer. "Jake's birthday is next month, and there was this limited edition watch." I hung up before she could finish. The room suddenly felt too small, the walls closing in as my vision blurred with unshed tears of frustration. The familiar feeling of being an afterthought in my own family crept over me like a cold shadow. The golden child had struck again, and somehow I knew I would be the villain by dinner time. That night at our parents' house, the birthday dinner I hadn't wanted but my mother had insisted upon, Jake wore the watch. The silver and blue timepiece gleamed on his wrist as he reached for the mashed potatoes, catching the light from Mom's prized chandelier. My jaw clenched so tight I could barely chew the dry chicken on my plate. No one had mentioned my empty hands. No gift from Leah. Not even a card. Mom had given me a sweater that was 2 sizes too large. Dad had handed me a gift card to a hardware store with an awkward pat on the back. Neither gift had required much thought, but at least they'd remembered. "So," I finally said, setting down my fork with a soft clink that somehow silenced the entire table. "Nice watch, Jake." Leah's eyes widened in warning. Jake, oblivious to the tension, grinned and extended his arm. "Thanks, man. It's a Breitling, limited edition." "Must have been expensive," I said, taking a slow sip of water, the cool liquid sliding down my throat. "Oh, you know." He winked. "When you know a guy who knows a guy?" Leah kicked him under the table. I could tell from the way he flinched the tablecloth rustling with the movement. "I know exactly how much it cost," I said quietly. $650. From my birthday money. The silence that followed was deafening. Mom's fork froze halfway to her mouth. Dad's eyes darted between Leah and me, his expression caught between confusion and the beginnings of his conflict avoidance hunch. "Ethan," Leah finally said, her voice trembling with manufactured emotion. "I can't believe you'd bring this up now and embarrass everyone." "Embarrass?" I echoed. "You stole my birthday money to buy your boyfriend a luxury watch, and I'm the one embarrassing everyone?" Now, Dad interjected, his shoulders already curling inward. "I'm sure there's a misunderstanding." "There's no misunderstanding," I interrupted. "Mom and Dad put money in our shared account for my birthday. Leah took it. End of story." Mom set down her fork, the soft clink against fine china punctuating the tension. "Ethan, you're making a scene over money? On your birthday? That's not very mature." There it was. The familiar sting of dismissal burned in my chest. Leah sniffled, right on cue, a single perfect tear sliding down her cheek. "I was going to pay him back," she whispered. "I just needed it for Jake's present. I didn't think Ethan would be so petty." Jake had the decency to look uncomfortable, but not enough to offer to return the watch. Instead, he subtly covered it with his sleeve, the fabric rasping against the metal links. "Petty," I repeated. "Right, because wanting my own birthday money makes me petty." "You've always been jealous of your sister," Mom said with a sigh that reeked of disappointment. "Ever since you were children. Can't we have one nice family dinner without this competition?" The injustice of it burned like acid in my stomach. I pushed back from the table, the chair legs scraping harshly against the hardwood floor. The sound made Mom wince. She'd just had them refinished last month. "Competition requires a fair playing field," I said, tossing my napkin onto my half-eaten dinner. "This has always been the Leah show, with special guest appearances by her screw-ups and her enablers." "Ethan," Dad finally found his voice. "Apologize to your sister." I stared at him, truly taking in the gray at his temples, the deepening lines around his mouth, evidence of years spent smoothing over Leah's messes while holding me to a higher standard. A standard that never earned me the same grace or forgiveness. "No," I said simply. "I don't think I will." I left the dining room, the family dynamic reborn in its familiar pattern. Leah the victim, parents the rescuers, Ethan the villain. Behind me, I could hear Mom's soothing murmurs and Leah's theatrical sniffles growing louder. My childhood bedroom felt both sanctuary and prison as I closed the door behind me. The walls still held posters from high school. Bands I no longer listened to, movies I'd outgrown. The bookshelf contained trophies for academic achievements that had never earned me the praise Leah received for simply showing up. I collapsed onto the twin bed, the springs creaking under my weight. The cotton comforter smelled faintly of the lavender detergent Mom still used, a scent that should have been comforting, but now only reminded me of all the nights I'd spent in this room, wondering why being good was never good enough. My phone buzzed with a bank notification. Curious, I opened the app. My blood froze. It wasn't just the birthday money. Another transaction had posted, credit card payment, $1,200. But I hadn't made any such payment. I quickly logged into my credit card account. There it was, a payment from my checking account, then new charges. Clothing stores, restaurants, electronics, all in the last month, all unauthorized. Leah hadn't just taken my birthday money, she'd been using my credit card. The realization hit me like a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. My hands began to shake, not with anger this time, but with something colder and more calculated. I took a deep breath. the dusty air of my childhood bedroom filling my lungs. Then another. Instead of storming back downstairs, I began to take screenshots of every transaction, organizing them into a folder. For the first time in our long history of her taking and me forgiving, I decided to remain silent and to start keeping receipts. 3 weeks later, I was sprawled on my couch scrolling through Netflix when Leah's voice drifted through my apartment's thin walls from the hallway outside. I hadn't changed the locks yet, a mistake I now regretted as her key scraped in the lock. She still occasionally used my place to borrow things or as a pit stop between errands, claiming it was more convenient than going back to her apartment across town. I quickly muted the TV, an inexplicable instinct to eavesdrop taking over when I heard Jake's voice accompanying hers. "He's probably not home," she was saying, her voice growing louder as they entered. "Ethan works late on Thursdays." I slid off the couch silently and pressed myself against the wall of the short hallway between my living room and entryway. The scent of Leah's cloying perfume, something expensive with vanilla and musk, announced her presence before I could see her. "I still feel weird about this," Jake said, his voice hushed. "After the birthday thing." "Oh, he's over it," Leah dismissed. "Besides, he has no idea about any of this. Trust me, he never checks his accounts. Remember how long it took him to notice I was using his Netflix?" The sound of my laptop bag being unzipped made my jaw clench. I peered around the corner to see Leah removing my MacBook while Jake stood awkwardly by the door, shifting his weight from foot to foot, the floorboards creaking beneath him. "We don't need his laptop," Jake protested. "We can use yours." "Mine's too slow for what I need to do," Leah said, opening my computer. "Besides, he has all the travel sites saved with his info. It'll take 2 minutes." My blood pressure skyrocketed as I watched my sister, my own flesh and blood, casually log into my laptop. The password prompt didn't even slow her down. Of course she knew it. I'd given it to her last year when she needed to print a resume on my printer, and like an idiot, I hadn't changed it. "Okay, so your parents gave us those miles for Christmas, right?" Jake asked, moving closer to look over her shoulder. "Not exactly," Leah murmured, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "They're Ethan's miles, but he never uses them. They'll expire otherwise." Jake shifted uneasily. The leather of his new jacket, certainly not purchased on his meager barista salary, creaking with the movement. "I'm not sure, sir." "Trust me," Leah cut him off. "It's fine, he never travels anyway. It's actually a favor. Miles are a use-it-or-lose-it thing." My hands curled into fists as I watched Leah navigate to my airline rewards account with practiced ease. This wasn't her first time, I realized with growing horror. The way she moved through the screens, already knowing where to click, how to access the Miles Redemption section. She'd done this before. "Cabo San Lucas," she hummed happily. "5 nights at the Paradisus Resort. Ocean View Room." "Using his miles for that?" Jake asked, sounding impressed despite his apparent misgivings. "And the companion ticket he's been saving," Leah added. "It expires next month anyway." The companion ticket I'd been saving for when I finally asked Sarah from accounting on a proper vacation. The miles I'd been accumulating for 3 years of business trips. My heartbeat pounded in my ears like a war drum. "We're stealing this from him," Jake said flatly. It wasn't a question. Leah finally glanced up at him, and I ducked back behind the wall. "It's not stealing if it's family," she said, her tone suggesting this was the most obvious thing in the world. "Besides, after everything my parents have done for him, he owes us." I bit my tongue until I tasted copper, fighting the urge to storm into the room and confront them. But something stopped me. A cold, calculating voice in my head that whispered, "Wait, watch, listen." They continued making their plans, booking flights and the resort using my miles and companion certificate. When they moved on to my Amazon account to order new luggage, I'd seen enough. I retreated silently to my bedroom, closing the door without a sound. By the time they left, 20 minutes later, Leah calling out a casual, "Buy apartment," as if to ensure I wasn't home, I had hatched the beginnings of a plan. The next morning I went to work as usual, but left early, telling my boss I had a dentist appointment. Instead, I went to every bank where I had accounts and spent the afternoon opening new ones, transferring funds, and changing passwords. I froze my credit report, ordered new cards, and set up sophisticated alerts for any account activity. I changed every password except one, the travel account Leah had used. That one, I left exactly as it was. When I returned home, the apartment was empty, but evidence of Leah's visit remained. A coffee mug in the sink that hadn't been there when I left, crumbs on the counter from whatever snack she'd helped herself to. The faint scent of her perfume still lingered in the air, mixing with the smell of my day-old coffee grounds. I opened my laptop and checked the travel reservation she'd made. The tickle of a plan began to form in my mind. Not just a way to protect myself, but perhaps a way to finally teach Leah that actions have consequences. I dialed the airline's premium member service line. "Thank you for calling Delta Premium Services. This is Marissa. How may I assist you today?" "Hi, Marissa," I said, keeping my voice pleasant. "I'm planning a surprise for my sister and her boyfriend. They're taking a trip to Cabo next month using my miles, and I'd like to make it extra special." "That's very generous of you," Marissa responded warmly. "What did you have in mind?" "I'd like to upgrade their experience," I said. "First-class flights instead of economy, and I'd like to add some special arrangements at the resort. I understand you have partnerships with certain properties." "We do indeed," she confirmed. "The Paradisus is one of our premium partners. I can connect you with their concierge services." "Perfect," I replied, settling deeper into my couch. "And I'd like to keep all of this a surprise until they arrive. Can we arrange that?" "Absolutely," Marissa assured me. "We specialize in surprise enhancements. May I ask if this is for a special occasion?" I smiled to myself, though there was no warmth in it. "It's a long overdue thank you gift," I said. "I want it to be memorable." An hour later, I had arranged for first-class flight upgrades, a premium ocean view suite instead of the standard room, and a special celebration dinner on their third night, all to be revealed only upon their arrival. The additional cost was substantial, nearly $3,000, but I paid it from my savings account with a grim satisfaction. Let them think they'd gotten away with it. Let them enjoy the luxurious surprise upgrades. The bill would come due eventually, in more ways than one. 2 weeks later, I helped carry Leah and Jake's new luggage to their Uber. The driver popped the trunk, the hydraulic system hissing as it opened to reveal an empty cargo space that would soon be filled with their overpriced designer bags. "I still can't believe you're being so cool about this," Jake said, looking genuinely puzzled as he hefted a suitcase into the trunk. The leather of the bag creaked under his grip real leather, expensive, nothing like the discount luggage I used for my business trips. I recognized it from the Amazon order they'd placed using my account. I'd let that charge go through before changing my passwords, a small price to pay for what was coming. "Why wouldn't I be?" I asked, flashing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "My little sister deserves a nice vacation." Leah looked slightly suspicious, her eyes narrowing as she studied my face. She was smart, always had been, but her intelligence was clouded by her sense of entitlement. She couldn't conceive of a world where her actions might have real consequences. "You're being weird," she decided, but her tone was light. "Did you get late or something?" "Just happy for you," I replied, helping the driver with the last bag. The fabric was rough against my palms, the zipper cool metal. "You guys should really enjoy the Paradisus. I hear the service there is exceptional." Jake brightened. "You know the place?" "I've done some research," I said casually. "Since you used my travel account, I got the confirmation emails." A flash of guilt crossed Jake's face, but Leah merely shrugged. "We'll send you pictures," she promised, reaching up to peck my cheek. Her perfume enveloped me in a cloud of expensive scent, almost choking in its intensity. "Oh, I'm counting on lots of pictures," I assured her. "Especially from the special dinner on your third night." "Special dinner?" Leah's perfectly sculpted eyebrows drew together. "You'll see," I smiled, patting her shoulder. The cotton of her designer blouse was soft under my fingers. "It's a surprise. My treat." For a moment, doubt clouded her eyes. Then greed won out, as I'd known it would. "That's really nice of you, Ethan. Thanks." "Don't thank me yet," I said, stepping back as they climbed into the Uber. "Have a great trip. You deserve everything that's coming to you." As the car pulled away, I raised my hand in a final wave, feeling the weight of my phone in my pocket, where a new app now displayed real-time alerts from the travel agency, the resort, and the special arrangements I'd made. In the quiet of my apartment afterward, I poured myself a glass of whiskey, the expensive kind I kept for special occasions, and made a silent toast. The amber liquid caught the afternoon sunlight streaming through my window, creating honey-colored patterns on my coffee table. "Happy birthday to me," I murmured to the empty room, taking a long, satisfying sip. The whiskey burned pleasantly on the way down, warming me from the inside. The gift of consequences is about to be delivered. The call from my parents came at 10:17 p.m., 3 days after Leah and Jake departed for Cabo. I was sprawled on my couch in sweatpants, binge-watching a series I'd been meaning to catch up on, when my phone lit up with "Mom and Dad" on the screen. The sudden interruption made me flinch, sloshing tea onto my shirt. "Hello?" I answered, muting the TV with my other hand. "Ethan." My father's voice was tight, strained. "We need your help. Not, 'How are you?' or 'Sorry about your birthday.' Just straight to whatever crisis Leah had manufactured this time." The familiar pattern made my teeth clench. "What's wrong?" I asked, already knowing the answer would involve my sister. "Your sister's credit card was declined at dinner," Mom cut in, her voice pitched higher than normal with anxiety. "We're at Bella Luna with the Hendersons. You remember Richard from your father's firm? And it's so embarrassing. She called us frantic from Cabo." Of course, the Hendersons. Mom had been trying to impress Richard and his wife for years, the perfect setting for a classic Leah emergency. "That's unfortunate," I said neutrally, setting my mug down on the coffee table with a soft clink. "What does that have to do with me?" The silence on the other end was telling. I could practically hear my parents exchanging looks. "Well," Dad finally said, clearing his throat, "she asked if you could transfer some money into your shared account, just until she gets back." The audacity was almost impressive. After stealing my birthday money and racking up charges on my credit card without permission, she wanted me to bail her out. "Again?" "Our shared account," I repeated slowly. "The one she emptied for Jake's watch?" "Ethan," Mom's voice took on that disapproving tone I knew so well. "This isn't the time to be petty. Your sister is stranded." "In a 5-star resort in Cabo San Lucas," I finished for her. "Paid for with my airline miles and companion ticket, without my permission." Another silence, longer this time. The background noise of the restaurant clattering silverware, indistinct conversation, soft piano music filled the void. "Is that true?" Dad finally asked, his voice lower. "Ask her," I suggested. "I'm sure she'll have a very creative explanation." "We need to sort this out later," Mom interjected. "Right now, we have to get through this dinner. Can you please just transfer enough to cover their meal? We'll deal with the rest afterward." I closed my eyes, pinching the bridge of my nose. Every fiber of my being wanted to refuse. But years of conditioning, of being the responsible one, the peacemaker, made me reach for my laptop. "Fine," I said shortly. "How much?" "300 should cover it," Dad said, relief evident in his voice. "Thank you, son." I made the transfer while still on the phone, the keys of my laptop clicking softly in the quiet apartment. $300. Not a small sum, but a price I was willing to pay for what was coming. "It's done," I told them. "Tell Leah this is the last time." "Of course," Mom said soothingly, in the same tone she'd used when promising me consequences for Leah that never materialized throughout our childhood. "We'll talk to her when she gets back." After hanging up, I sat in the dark of my living room, the blue light of the TV flickering across my face. My tea had gone cold, a thin film forming on the surface. I pulled up my banking app, curious to see if Leah had tried accessing our shared account from Cabo. What I found made my blood run cold. The account was empty, completely drained. Our shared emergency fund, the one we'd started in college with strict rules about usage, had been emptied 2 days before their trip. $5,000. Gone. Money that was supposed to be for true emergencies, not vacations. My fingers trembled slightly as I navigated to my email, searching for any transaction notifications I might have missed. There were none for the emergency fund withdrawal. Leah must have changed the settings. But what I did find, buried under promotional emails and work correspondence, were several password reset confirmations from accounts I rarely checked. My secondary email, my old retirement account from my first job, even my PayPal. Systematically, methodically, Leah had been trying to access every account I had. The realization was like a bucket of ice water down my spine. With growing dread, I began checking everything: email, forwarding settings, recovery phone numbers, security questions. On multiple accounts, I found evidence of tampering, little digital fingerprints Leah had left behind in her rush to exploit every resource I had. In my secondary email account, I found a folder I hadn't created labeled Receipts. Inside were confirmations of transfers, purchases, account changes, a digital paper trail of Leah's systematic looting of my finances over not days or weeks, but more than a year. And CC'd on many of these confirmations? Jake's email address. He wasn't just complicit, he was a partner. The betrayal cut deeper than I'd imagined possible. This wasn't opportunistic theft or impulsive decisions. This was calculated, long-term exploitation by the person who should have had my back. By the golden child who already had everything handed to her. My hands shook as I dialed another number. Paradisus Resort, buenas noches. This is Miguel speaking. How may I assist you? The sound of distant music and laughter filtered through the line. The resort bar was clearly in full swing, the cheerful ambiance a stark contrast to the cold fury building in my chest. Hello, Miguel. This is Ethan Mitchell. I believe my sister Leah Mitchell and her boyfriend Jake Winters are staying at your resort? My voice was surprisingly steady, betraying none of the emotion roiling beneath the surface. One moment, please, Mr. Mitchell, while I check our system. The clacking of keyboard keys filled the pause. Yes, Miss Mitchell and Mr. Winters are in our ocean suite. Would you like me to connect you? No, I said quickly. I'm calling to make sure everything is arranged for their special dinner tomorrow night. I've been working with your events team to plan a surprise. Ah, yes? Miguel's voice brightened. I see the notation here. The celebration package in the Agave Terrace at 7 p.m. Everything is confirmed, Mr. Mitchell? Excellent, I said. And the special presentation I requested? The audiovisual team has received all your materials and will have everything prepared according to your specifications. Miguel assured me. "It will be quite memorable, as you requested." Perfect. I couldn't help the small smile that formed. They deserve a night they'll never forget. After confirming a few more details and adding one final touch to the evening's plan, I hung up and leaned back in my chair. The leather creaked beneath me, a strangely comforting sound in the quiet apartment. On my laptop screen, dozens of tabs displayed evidence of Leah and Jake's betrayal. Bank statements, email confirmations, password reset attempts, the digital equivalent of fingerprints at a crime scene, evidence I had carefully compiled, organized, and earlier today, sent to the one place they couldn't escape from it, the resort's event planning team, with explicit instructions for tomorrow night's celebration. I closed my laptop with a definitive click. In my mind, I could already hear the glasses clinking for a toast at tomorrow's dinner, see the projector whirring to life, imagine the looks on their faces as the truth was laid bare for all to see. "Cheers, sis," I murmured to my empty apartment. "The bill is coming due." The next morning dawned gray and drizzly, raindrops pattering against my bedroom window in a soothing rhythm. I stretched languidly under my covers, savoring the rare luxury of sleeping in on a weekday. I'd called in sick to work, the first time I'd used a personal day in over 2 years. Today wasn't just any day. Today was reckoning day. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, the vibration creating a harsh rattle against the wood. A text from Chad in IT. Activity on the honeypot account, accessing from Cabo IP. Want me to shut it down? I smiled, right on schedule. "No," I replied. "Let it play out. Thanks for the heads up." I swung my legs over the side of the bed, my bare feet connecting with the cool hardwood floor. The contrast between the warm blankets and cold floor sent a little shiver up my spine, fully waking me. As I padded to the kitchen to make coffee, I reflected on how different my life was from the one Leah believed I had. In her mind, I was still the same predictable, overly cautious brother who kept all his money in easily accessible accounts. The reliable doormat who would forgive any transgression. The boring IT guy with a modest salary and even more modest aspirations. She had no idea that 3 years ago, I'd been headhunted by one of the largest cybersecurity firms in the country. That my boring IT job actually involved protecting Fortune 500 companies from exactly the kind of exploitation she was attempting. That my real salary was nearly triple what she thought it was. The coffee machine gurgled and hissed, filling my apartment with the rich aroma of freshly ground beans. I inhaled deeply, savoring the scent as I pulled my favorite mug from the cabinet, a handmade ceramic piece with an irregular shape and a deep blue glaze that reminded me of ocean depths. The mug was cold and smooth against my palms as I poured the steaming coffee. The warmth gradually seeped into the ceramic as I carried it to my home office, not the den with the old desktop that Leah knew about, but the converted second bedroom with state-of-the-art equipment hidden behind a sliding bookcase. A little theatrical, perhaps, but in my line of work, compartmentalization was both practical and necessary. I settled into my ergonomic chair and entered a 16-character password on my primary workstation. The screens flickered to life, displaying multiple monitoring programs tracking activity across various dummy accounts I'd set up months ago, my honeypot system. There she was, Leah, accessing what she thought was my main savings account from her resort room in Cabo. The account showed a balance of $42,000, an amount I'd specifically chosen to be tempting but not suspicious. In reality, it contained just $500, with an elaborate system of alerts and tracking mechanisms attached to every cent. I watched as she navigated through the account, checking recent transactions, examining transfer options. The cursor hovered over the transfer button momentarily before moving away. Testing the waters, but not yet ready to dive in. Smart, but not smart enough. My phone rang, the specialized tone indicating a work call. I answered on the second ring. Mitchell. Ethan, it's Raj. My colleague's voice was professional but friendly. Got your email about the resort favor. Torres says he owes you one after the Chicago incident, so he's giving you the green light. Need any backup? I smiled at the mention of the Chicago incident, a sophisticated ransomware attack I'd thwarted last year at the luxury hotel chain where Miguel Torres served as regional security director. The hotel group owned several properties worldwide, including, conveniently enough, the Paradisus in Cabo. No backup needed, I replied, taking a sip of coffee. The liquid was hot and slightly bitter on my tongue. Just a simple presentation setup, but I appreciate Torres signing off. He said, and I quote, "Tell Mitchell this barely makes a dent in what I owe him. Sounds like you saved more than their systems." Their reputation, more like, I said. Having customer data leaked would have tanked their stock overnight. After a few more minutes discussing actual work matters, I hung up and returned my attention to the monitoring screens. Leah had moved on to another account, my dummy investment portfolio. I watched her examine the holdings, taking screenshots of account numbers and balances. My real accounts, of course, were protected by security measures that would make most banks envious. Multiple authentication factors, biometric verification, physical security keys, and monitoring systems that would flag even the slightest unusual activity. The accounts Leah was accessing were elaborate facades, digital Potemkin villages designed to look genuine while revealing nothing of value. The rain continued its gentle assault on my windows as I worked, preparing the final touches for tonight's revelation. I compiled all the evidence, screenshots of unauthorized transfers, timestamp-marked access logs, even footage from my apartment's hidden security camera showing Leah and Jake using my laptop without permission. All neatly organized into a presentation that would leave no room for denial or excuse. Around noon, my phone buzzed with another text from Chad. "She's trying to initiate a transfer from the honeypot to an offshore account. Proceeding per your instructions." I texted back a thumbs-up emoji and opened another monitoring window. Sure enough, Leah was attempting to move $30,000 from what she thought was my main savings account to a recently created account in the Cayman Islands. The transfer appeared to process normally, complete with the standard confirmation screen. What she didn't know was that the system had actually transferred only $50, a traceable amount that created an evidence trail without significant financial loss, while generating alerts to both my real bank and to the financial crimes division of my company. The remaining transfer was merely numbers on a screen, digital smoke, and mirrors. I leaned back in my chair, fingers steepled under my chin. The leather creaked softly with the movement. Everything was proceeding according to plan. The pieces were in place. Tonight, the trap would spring shut. My contemplation was interrupted by my phone ringing again, this time with my parents' ringtone. I considered letting it go to voicemail, but curiosity won out. "Hello?" "Ethan." My father's voice sounded strained. "Have you heard from your sister today?" I glanced at my monitoring screens, where I could literally see Leah's digital movements in real time. "No," I replied truthfully. "I haven't spoken to her. Why?" "We've been trying to reach her all morning," Mom chimed in, clearly on speakerphone. "She's not answering her phone or responding to texts. We're getting worried." Of course they were worried. Their golden child hadn't responded to their messages for a few hours, and it was a 5-alarm fire. If I went silent for days, they'd probably just assume I was busy with work. "She's on vacation," I reminded them, keeping my voice neutral. "Probably just enjoying the beach." "She always answers our calls," Mom insisted, the worry in her voice tinged with pride at their special bond. And she mentioned something about dinner reservations being changed, but didn't explain. Do you know anything about that? The corners of my mouth twitched. Actually, I do. I arranged a special dinner for them tonight. A surprise. You did? The surprise in my father's voice stung more than it should have. The concept of me doing something nice for Leah was apparently shocking. That's unusually generous of you, Ethan. What kind of surprise? Mom asked, suspicion creeping into her tone. She knew me well enough to sense when something was off. I chose my words carefully, watching one of my monitors as Leah attempted to access yet another of my decoy accounts. Let's just say it's a thank you dinner for everything she's done for me lately. Well, that's nice, Dad said, clearly confused by this uncharacteristic gesture after our recent conflicts. Will you let us know when you hear from her? We're still concerned. Of course, I promised, my eyes fixed on the screen where Leah's digital fingerprints were all over my dummy finances. I'm sure she'll have plenty to tell you after tonight. After ending the call, I swiveled in my chair to face the large whiteboard mounted on the wall of my secret office. On it, written in my precise handwriting, was a detailed timeline of Leah's financial incursions over the past 14 months. Amounts, dates, accounts, all meticulously documented, with red lines connecting related transactions in a complex web of theft. It had started small. $50 here, $100 there, amounts I might not notice missing. But over time, as I failed to confront her, the sums grew larger, more brazen. The birthday money was just the latest in a pattern that totaled over $12,000. Tonight, that pattern would be exposed in vivid, undeniable detail. My phone pinged with a text from Miguel at the resort. Final arrangements confirmed. Private dining terrace secured. AV equipment tested. Chef's special menu approved. Champagne on ice. I texted back, "Perfect. Proceed as planned." The rain outside had finally stopped, watery sunlight breaking through the clouds. In Cabo, I knew, the sunset would soon paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks, a beautiful backdrop for an evening of revelations. I glanced at the clock. 2:47 p.m. In a little over 4 hours, Leah and Jake would arrive at the Agave Terrace, expecting a romantic sunset dinner, courtesy of the resort's Random Guest Appreciation Program, a fiction created specifically for them. Instead, they would receive the bill for a long history of theft and betrayal. I closed my monitoring programs and shut down the workstation. There was nothing more to be done from my end. The pieces were in motion. Walking to my kitchen, I opened a bottle of the same champagne that would be served at their dinner tonight, an expensive vintage I'd specifically requested. The cork came free with a satisfying pop, and I poured a single glass, the bubbles racing to the surface like my racing thoughts. I raised the glass in a solitary toast. "To consequences," I murmured, taking a sip of the crisp, effervescent liquid. It tasted of apples and success. Miguel's text arrived precisely at 7:03 p.m. Guests seated, proceeding with Phase 1. I was curled up on my couch, a thriller novel open but unread in my lap, my attention fully focused on the phone beside me. My heart rate picked up at the message, a mix of anticipation and vindicating satisfaction flooding my system. "Acknowledged," I texted back. "Keep me updated." I could picture the scene unfolding thousands of miles away. Leah and Jake, escorted to the resort's exclusive Agave Terrace, a private dining platform overlooking the ocean. The sun would be setting, casting long golden fingers across the water. Candles would flicker in hurricane glasses, protecting the flames from the gentle sea breeze. White linen tablecloths, polished silverware, crystal glasses. the perfect romantic setting. And they would be completely unsuspecting. According to Miguel's earlier messages, they'd accepted the complimentary special dinner story without question. Of course they had. To Leah, free luxury experiences were simply her due. My phone chimed again. Champagne served. Guests appear relaxed and pleased. I could almost hear the clink of crystal, see Leah's self-satisfied smile as she sipped expensive champagne she believed was complimentary. The same vintage I now swirled in my own glass, the bubbles tickling my nose with each sip. Another text. Appetizers delivered, proceeding to Phase 2 in approximately 20 minutes. Phase 2, the celebration video that would begin playing on the discrete screen being set up while they enjoyed their first course. A video I had personally compiled, narrated, and timed for maximum impact. I set my book aside, no longer pretending to read. My apartment was quiet, save for the soft hum of the air conditioning and the distant sounds of city traffic filtering through my windows. The gentle, white noise formed a backdrop to my churning thoughts as I imagined the scene unfolding in Cabo. Would Leah be wearing the new dress she'd charged to my Amazon account last week? Would Jake have his arm draped possessively around her shoulders, his stolen watch gleaming in the candlelight? Were they already planning their next exploitation, unaware that the reckoning was mere minutes away? My phone buzzed. Main course served. Screen in position, awaiting your confirmation to proceed. I took a deep breath, savoring the moment of decision. Once launched, there would be no turning back. The public revelation, the evidence, the consequences, all would unfold regardless of second thoughts or mercy. For a fleeting moment, I pictured Leah as she'd been when we were children, before the golden child dynamic had fully crystallized, when she'd still looked up to her big brother. There had been moments of genuine connection, hadn't there? Birthday cards drawn in crayon, whispered secrets during family road trips, the time she'd defended me against a neighborhood bully, her 7-year-old voice fierce with protective fury. When had it all changed? When had she started seeing me not as her brother, but as a resource to be exploited? The memory of my empty bank account on my birthday hardened my resolve. The systematic theft, the casual dismissal of my feelings, the years of watching my parents excuse and enable her behavior. Proceed, I texted simply. 3 dots appeared, indicating Miguel was typing. Then, video beginning, will update. I closed my eyes, picturing the scene. The waiter approaching their table with an apologetic smile. Pardon the interruption, but we have a special presentation for you this evening. The screen lighting up behind them, drawing the attention of nearby diners. The resort's logo fading to reveal the title. A Financial History. Leah and Jake. And then my voice, calm and clear. This is a documentation of unauthorized financial activities conducted by Leah Mitchell and Jake Winters over the past 14 months. Followed by the evidence, transaction by transaction, screenshot by screenshot, date by date, amount by amount. All displayed in high-definition clarity, narrated in my matter-of-fact tone. Indisputable. Damning. My phone remained silent for 11 excruciating minutes. I checked it repeatedly, confirming it had power, signal, sound enabled. Nothing. Then, finally, Phase 2 complete. Situation intense. Multiple guests recording. Female subject attempted to stop presentation unsuccessfully. Male subject has left table. Proceeding with Phase 3. Phase 3. The presentation of the itemized bill. Not just for dinner, but for every unauthorized transaction, with interest calculated to the day. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, a strange mixture of emotions swirling through me. Triumph, yes, but also an unexpected hollow feeling in the pit of my stomach. The taste of ash mingling with champagne. This was what I wanted, wasn't it? Public consequences, inescapable accountability. Proceed, I typed again. The response came faster this time. Bill presented, male subject has returned, visibly agitated, argument between subjects escalating, security on standby. I could imagine the scene devolving, Jake's face contorted with anger, Leah's with desperate denial, the whispers from nearby tables, the surreptitious phone recordings that would inevitably find their way to social media by morning. My phone buzzed continuously now. Male subject confronting female subject about transactions he claims no knowledge of. Female subject crying, attempting to leave. Bill remains unpaid. Male subject has removed watch, placed on table, left terrace. Female subject following, significant verbal confrontation. Other guests complaining about disruption, manager intervening. Female subject requesting phone to make call. Likely calling you or parents. The last message made me check my call blocks, still active. For the next hour, neither Leah nor my parents would be able to reach me. The final phase of isolation in my plan. My phone went silent again. I waited, tension building in my shoulders until they ached. The champagne in my glass had gone flat, tiny bubbles no longer racing to the surface, like excitement fading to something more complex. Finally, after 23 minutes. Situation contained. Female subject in resort office. Male subject has requested separate accommodation, being moved to different part of resort. Bill remains unpaid. Resort applying charges to room as per your arrangement. I exhaled slowly. A breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. It was done. The house of cards had collapsed. The consequences Leah had dodged for so long had finally landed squarely on her shoulders and on the shoulders of her accomplice. Thank you, I replied to Miguel. Please ensure all staff involved receive the agreed-upon gratuity. Additional compensation for any inconvenience caused to other guests as well. Understood, came the swift reply. One additional item. Video of incident already circulating on guests' social media. Quite vivid. My stomach tightened unexpectedly. I had wanted evidence, accountability, consequences, but had I anticipated just how public this would become? How far the ripples would spread? As if on cue, my phone chimed with a news alert. Viral. Couple exposed for financial fraud during romantic dinner. One of the resort guests must have connections or been particularly fast with their upload. I clicked the link, and there it was. Shaky cell phone footage showing Leah's face crumpling as the screen behind her detailed her betrayal. Jake standing abruptly, napkin thrown down. The murmurs of other diners rising to a shocked buzz. The crystal-clear audio of my narration naming dates, amounts, accounts. And worst of all, or best, depending on your perspective, Leah's tearful confession. It wasn't stealing. He's my brother. Family shares. I closed the video, an unexpected wave of nausea washing over me. This was what I'd wanted. This was the consequence I'd orchestrated. So why did victory taste so bitter? My phone buzzed with another text, this time from an unexpected source. My boss. Ethan, call me ASAP. Video circulating of your family situation. Need to discuss professional implications. Of course. In my focus on Leah's comeuppance, I hadn't fully considered how my own reputation might be affected. A cybersecurity professional publicly exposing family financial fraud? The ethics were, at best, murky. Before I could process this new complication, my phone lit up with a call from an unknown number with a Mexican country code. I knew who it must be. After 4 rings, I accepted the call. Ethan! Leah's voice was almost unrecognizable, raw from crying, pitched high with panic. Restaurant sounds echoed in the background. She must be in the resort's main office. You have to help me. Jake's gone completely crazy. He's saying I stole from you, that I lied to him about everything. He's demanding a separate room and saying he's booking his own flight home." I said nothing, letting her desperate words tumble into the silence. "The resort is saying we owe thousands of dollars for upgrades we didn't ask for. They're threatening to call the police if we don't pay. And there's this horrible video showing everything, and people were filming us, and—" Her voice broke. "Ethan, please! I need you to fix this!" The familiar pattern. Leah creates chaos, then expects everyone else to clean it up, expects me to clean it up. "I can't fix this, Leah," I finally said, my voice calm despite the turmoil of emotions inside me. "No one can fix this but you." "What are you talking about?" Her voice sharpened with growing comprehension. "Wait, was this you? Did you set this up?" "I arranged for the truth to be revealed," I corrected. "Everything in that presentation was factual. Your actions, your choices." "It was just money," she shouted, her voice cracking. "That's all you care about, isn't it? Money and your precious accounts and your boring, pathetic little life? I have real problems now because of you." "No," I said quietly. "You have real problems because of you. The money wasn't the issue, Leah. It was the betrayal. It was taking advantage of the one person who's always cleaned up your messes." I could hear her ragged breathing on the other end of the line, punctuated by hiccuping sobs. "I need to come home," she finally said, her voice small. "I need you to book me a flight. Jake's abandoned me here. Mom and Dad aren't answering." Of course they weren't. They were probably still at another social dinner, phones silenced, blissfully unaware that their golden child's world was imploding. "No," I said simply. "What?" Disbelief colored her voice. "I said no. I'm not booking you a flight. I'm not sending you money. I'm not fixing this." "You can't just leave me stranded in Mexico." The panic in her voice was rising again. "I'm your sister." "Yes, you are," I agreed. "And I've spent most of my life trying to be a good brother to you. But I'm done being your ATM and your safety net." "Ethan, please," she begged, her voice breaking. "I'm sorry about the birthday money. I'll pay you back everything, I swear. Just help me this one last time." The one last time that never was. How many times had I heard those words before? "Call Mom and Dad," I suggested. "I'm sure they'll help their golden child. They always do." "They're not answering," she wailed. "And I don't have any money left for international calls." "That sounds like a problem you created," I observed. "I suggest you start solving it yourself." "You heartless bastard," she hissed, anger replacing desperation. "You think you're so perfect, so blameless? You planned all this to humiliate me, to destroy my relationship, to ruin my life." "No, Leah," I corrected gently. "I planned this to show you that actions have consequences, something nobody else in your life has ever taught you." A notification flashed on my screen. A new email from my parents with the subject line, "Call us immediately." "I have to go," I told her. "Good luck, Leah. I truly hope you learned something from this." "Ethan, don't you dare hang up on me. Ethan!" I ended the call, then turned off my phone completely. The sudden silence in my apartment was profound, broken only by the soft ticking of the clock on my wall. The champagne in my glass had gone completely flat. I stared at it for a long moment, then carried it to the sink and poured it out, watching the pale gold liquid swirl down the drain. Victory, it seemed, tasted nothing like champagne after all. The pounding on my door started at 6:42 a.m., 3 days after the Cabo incident, as my coworkers had taken to calling it. I was already awake, nursing my second cup of coffee at my kitchen island, scrolling through emails on my tablet. The harsh, insistent knocking made me flinch, coffee sloshing over the rim of my mug onto the granite countertop. "Ethan, open this door right now!" My father's voice, tight with that particular strain of controlled fury I knew all too well. I sighed, dabbing at the spilled coffee with a paper towel. The soft, absorbent paper quickly became saturated with the dark liquid. I tossed it into the trash and walked unhurriedly to the door. Through the peephole, I could see both my parents, Dad in front, face flushed, Mom behind him wringing her hands, both still in travel clothes. I'd been expecting this visit since their text. Landing at 6 a.m., coming straight to your place. This is not a request. I opened the door, stepping back as my father immediately pushed past me into the apartment. My mother followed, her eyes red-rimmed from either crying or the overnight flight from Cabo, possibly both. "How could you?" Dad demanded without preamble, whirling to face me. "Your own sister." I closed the door calmly, the latch clicking softly into place. "Good morning to you too," I said. "Coffee?" "Don't you dare be flippant with us," Mom snapped, dropping her purse on my couch. The leather bag made a soft thud against the cushions. "We've spent the last 48 hours dealing with your sister's complete meltdown trying to clean up the mess you created." "The mess I created," I repeated, returning to my kitchen to refill my mug. The coffee pot hissed as I lifted it from the warmer. "Interesting perspective." "She's devastated," Mom continued following me. "Jake's left her, the resort threatened legal action, and there's that horrible video all over the internet. What were you thinking?" I turned to face them, leaning against the counter. "I was thinking it was time Leah faced consequences for her actions. For once." Dad stepped forward, his face darkening. "Consequences? You humiliated her in public. You ruined her relationship. I exposed her theft," I interrupted calmly. "I revealed what she'd been doing behind my back, and behind Jake's back, apparently, for over a year. If the truth ruins her relationship, perhaps she shouldn't have been lying to her boyfriend." "It wasn't theft," Mom insisted, the familiar refrain making my jaw clench. "It was just borrowing. She would have paid you back eventually." "Over $12,000, I said flatly. "Without permission, without acknowledgement, without repayment. What would you call it?" My parents exchanged glances, a silent communication honed through decades of marriage and joint parenting decisions, usually decisions that favored Leah. "We understand you were upset about the birthday money," Dad finally said in a more measured tone. "But this response was wildly disproportionate." "The birthday money was just the final straw," I said, setting my mug down with a sharp click against the counter. "Did Leah tell you about the credit card charges? The drained emergency fund? The attempts to access every account I have?" Mom's brow furrowed. "She said there were some misunderstandings about shared expenses." "Misunderstandings," I echoed, moving to my laptop on the dining table. "Let me show you some misunderstandings." I opened a folder labeled Leah and turned the screen toward them. A spreadsheet filled the display, meticulously documenting 14 months of unauthorized transactions. Dates, amounts, account numbers, all color-coded by severity and organized chronologically. "This is what your daughter has been doing," I said, keeping my voice level despite the anger simmering just beneath the surface. "Not borrowing, not misunderstanding. Systematically stealing from the one person who's always been there to clean up her messes." Dad leaned closer to the screen, his frown deepening as he scrolled through the entries. Mom remained standing, arms crossed defensively across her chest. "Why didn't you come to us?" she demanded. "Why this public spectacle?" The question sparked something in me, a match to dry tinder. "Are you serious?" I asked, my forced calm finally cracking. "When have you ever held Leah accountable? When have you ever taken my side?" "That's not fair," Dad protested, looking up from the laptop. "We've always supported both of you." "Bullshit," I interrupted, the vulgarity making Mom flinch. "When I told you she'd taken my birthday money, you called me petty and materialistic. When I confronted her about using my credit card, you told me family should help family. Every time she's taken advantage of me, you've excused it, justified it, enabled it." The apartment fell silent except for the soft hum of the refrigerator. Outside, the morning traffic created a distant urban soundtrack, car horns and the rumble of delivery trucks filtering through my windows. "She's your sister," Mom finally said, as if that explained and excused everything. "Yes, she is," I agreed. "And what kind of sister systematically exploits her brother? What kind of parents see that happening and do nothing to stop it?" Dad's expression hardened. "We didn't come here to be lectured by our son about our parenting. We came to tell you to fix this mess." And there it was, the familiar expectation that I would be the responsible one, the peacemaker, the cleaner-upper of Leah's chaos. I almost laughed at the predictability. "No," I said simply. "What do you mean, no?" Dad demanded. "I mean no. I'm not fixing this. I'm not sending Leah money. I'm not booking her flights. I'm not smoothing things over with Jake or the resort or anyone else. For once in her life, Leah can face the consequences of her actions." "She's stranded in Mexico!" Mom cried. "Her boyfriend abandoned her. The resort is holding her luggage until she pays, and she has no way home." "That sounds like several problems that aren't mine," I replied, returning to my coffee. The liquid had cooled, but I took a sip anyway, the bitter taste matching my mood. Dad's face flushed deeper. "I don't recognize you right now. This cold, vindictive person isn't the son we raised." "Funny," I said, setting my mug down carefully. "I've been here all along. You just never noticed because you were too busy rescuing Leah from her latest self-created disaster." Mom stepped forward, her voice dropping to that coaxing tone she'd used throughout our childhood to smooth over conflicts. "Ethan, sweetheart, I know you're hurt. I know Leah made some bad choices, but she's still family. She needs you now more than ever." For a moment, the familiar guilt tugged at me. The lifetime of conditioning to put Leah's needs first, to be the bigger person, to let things go for the sake of family harmony. The weary responsibility of being the only adult in a family of enablers and the enabled. Then I remembered the empty bank account on my birthday. The systematic exploitation, the casual dismissal of my feelings when I'd confronted her. The years of being taken advantage of while my parents looked the other way. "I'm done," I said quietly. "I'm done being Leah's safety net and ATM. I'm done watching you two enable her worst behaviors. I'm done with all of it." "You don't mean that," Mom said, her voice quavering. "You're just angry right now." "I'm not angry," I corrected. "I'm clear. For the first time in maybe my entire life, I see the dynamic in this family with perfect clarity, and I'm choosing not to participate in it anymore." Dad stepped forward, his tone shifting to one of authority, the voice he'd used when laying down rare but firm rules in our childhood. "Enough of this nonsense. Your sister needs a plane ticket home and money for the resort bill. You will provide both, and then we can discuss your grievances, like adults." The command was so predictable, so typical of how my family operated, that it almost made me smile. Almost. "No," I repeated, the word somehow easier the second time. "Ethan Mitchell," Dad started, pulling himself up to his full height. "As your father—" "Let me stop you right there," I interrupted, setting my mug down with a definitive click. "I'm 26 years old. I haven't lived under your roof or depended on your financial support since college. You cannot order me to do anything." My father blinked, genuinely taken aback by this assertion of independence. My mother's expression shifted from pleading to something harder, more calculating. "Is this about money?" she asked. "Are you really so petty that you'd leave your sister stranded over a few $1,000s?" "It was never about the money," I replied. "It was about respect, about boundaries, about being treated like a person rather than a resource. Fine, Dad snapped, pulling out his wallet. How much will it take to end this ridiculous standoff? 5,000? 10? Name your price. The insult was so profound, it momentarily robbed me of speech. They still didn't understand, or refused to understand, the fundamental issue. Get out, I finally said, my voice low but firm. Excuse me? Mom's eyes widened. Get out of my apartment, I clarified. Now. We are not leaving until this situation is resolved, Dad declared, his wallet still in hand. I walked calmly to my bedroom, returning a moment later with my phone. I pulled up a recording app and hit play. Ethan, you're making a scene over money? On your birthday? That's not very mature. My mother's voice, crystal clear from the dinner where this had all started. I was going to pay him back. I just needed it for Jake's present. I didn't think Ethan would be so petty. Leah's voice, followed by my father's. Ethan, apologize to your sister. I stopped the recording, meeting their shocked expressions with steady calm. I have recordings of every conversation where you've dismissed my concerns about Leah's behavior, I informed them. Every time you've called me petty, materialistic, or jealous for objecting to being exploited. Every time you've demanded I apologize for having perfectly reasonable boundaries. You recorded us? Mom whispered, looking genuinely betrayed. Your own parents? After years of having my reality denied and my experiences dismissed? Yes, I started keeping receipts. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the sound of Dad's wallet being shoved back into his pocket. So that's it? He finally asked. You're just done with this family? The question hit harder than I'd expected. A dull pain blooming in my chest. Was I done with my family? The people who should have protected me but had instead consistently sacrificed my well-being for Leah's comfort? I'm done with the dynamic, I clarified. I'm done being the designated adult while Leah gets to remain a consequence-free child forever. I'm done being gaslit about the reality of how she treats me and how you enable it. And your sister? Mom pressed. You're just abandoning her in Mexico? I walked to my desk, wrote something on a piece of paper, and handed it to her. Here's the number for the American consulate in Cabo. They can help citizens in distress arrange emergency travel home. Mom stared at the paper as if it might bite her. This is cruel, Ethan. No, I disagreed. Cruel is teaching your daughter that she can exploit others without consequence. Cruel is teaching your son that his feelings and boundaries don't matter. What I'm doing is the kindest thing anyone has done for Leah in years, showing her that actions have consequences. We can't believe you're being so heartless, Dad said, shaking his head. Over money. It was never about the money, I repeated, exhaustion suddenly weighing on me. But you'll never understand that. The same way you'll never understand why I'm doing this, or why it's necessary. I moved to the door and opened it, the message clear. Dad hesitated, then moved toward the exit, his shoulders slumped in defeat. Mom lingered, her expression shifting from anger to a manipulative sadness I recognized all too well. If you do this, she said quietly, if you abandon your sister when she needs you most, there may not be a way back. For any of us. The implied threat, choose Leah or lose your family, might once have worked. Once, I would have capitulated, fallen in line, done what was expected to maintain the illusion of family harmony. But not today. That's a choice you're making, not me, I replied, holding the door open wider. I'm still here. I'm still willing to have a relationship with all of you, but one based on mutual respect, not exploitation. Your father's right, she said, gathering her purse. The leather creaked as she clutched it tightly. I don't recognize who you've become. I'm the same person I've always been, I told her as she passed through the doorway. You just never really saw me. The door closed with a soft click that somehow felt more final than any slam could have. In the sudden silence of my apartment, I leaned against the wall, my legs suddenly weak. My throat burned with unshed tears, not for Leah's predicament or my parents' disappointment, but for the years lost to a dynamic that had harmed all of us in different ways. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "It's Jake. We need to talk." I stared at the message for a long moment, weighing my options. Then I typed a simple reply. "No, we don't." I blocked the number, set my phone to Do Not Disturb, and went to shower. The hot water cascaded over my shoulders, washing away the tension of the confrontation, steam filling the bathroom with a comforting warmth. For the first time in as long as I could remember, I felt unburdened. Not happy, exactly. There was too much fresh pain for that. But free. Free of expectations that were never fair. Free of responsibility that was never mine to bear. Free to discover who I could be when I wasn't defined by my sister's chaos or my parents' enabling. As I dressed for work, I caught my reflection in the mirror. The same face I'd always had, but somehow different. Clearer. More defined. Less apologetic. "Hello?" I said softly to my reflection. "Nice to finally meet you." 1 month after the Cabo incident, I stood in the middle of my new apartment, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes and the scent of fresh paint. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long rectangles of golden light across the hardwood floors. The view of the city stretched before me. Not the same neighborhood where I'd lived within walking distance of my family, but a completely different part of town. A fresh start. The sound of tape being ripped from cardboard echoed in the mostly empty space as Marcus, my colleague from work, opened another box labeled Kitchen. "Dude, why do you own so many coffee mugs?" he asked, unwrapping newspaper from around a ceramic mug with a Python code joke printed on the side. "Do you secretly run a cafe I don't know about?" I laughed, the sound bouncing off the bare walls. "Coffee is serious business. Different mugs for different moods." Sarah from accounting emerged from the kitchen, dusting her hands on her jeans. "Cabinets are all lined. Where do you want these glasses?" "Upper right cabinet," I directed, smiling at the easy camaraderie of friends helping with my move. Real friends. Not the obligation-based relationships I'd maintained for years, but people who genuinely enjoyed my company. The difference was still sometimes startling. My phone buzzed on the counter where I'd left it. I glanced at it reflexively, then returned to unpacking. After the incident, I'd made a rule for myself. Check messages on my schedule, not everyone else's. Small boundaries, building to larger ones. "Aren't you going to get that?" Marcus asked, eyeing the phone. "Later," I said, slicing open another box. The tape parted with a satisfying rip. "Moving day takes priority." The truth was, I already knew who was calling. My parents had settled into a pattern of Sunday evening calls, carefully timed, I suspected, to remind me of the family dinners I was missing. The conversations were stilted, filled with strained politeness and carefully avoided topics. But they were trying, in their way. It was something. Leah, on the other hand, had cycled through the predictable stages: tearful apologies, angry accusations, elaborate promises, and finally sullen acceptance when none of these tactics yielded the response she wanted. Her latest strategy was sending links to heartwarming reconciliation stories, with transparent messages about forgiveness being the highest virtue. I hadn't blocked her number, but I had created a special silent notification for her messages. Progress, not perfection.